What's up? My name's Glue Boy. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about 40k and other stuff when I eventually make other videos. But before I get into this, I guess if you like what I'm doing here, leave some likes, subscribe, do that stuff. You know, be kind of cool, unrealistic, but if I could get like to 1k by the end of the year, it's pretty cool. Anyways, on to the actual thing. So today we're going to be talking about the Primarch, Corvus Corax. Corvus Corax, the Deliverer, the Master of Shadows, Mr. Keeper of the Hair Grease himself. This dude, now I have my, irrefutable Primarch tier list that is completely accurate, unbiased opinion. However, that's gotta change. I need to bring up Corvus. He's now an A tier. Because in reading all about this dude, he's so fucking cool. He's great. He is like the honor of being put in the category of competent Primarchs, which there's definitely like a handful of ones that I'd say actually like were effective for what they did. Even Perturabo, the incel himself, he's competent, whatever. That and full admission, back when I was like a young child, I was a full like Shadow the Hedgehog, edgelord loving kid. So no surprise I like him. But anyways, on to Corvus's whole shit. So, along with the other Primarchs, Corvus crash landed on a random planet. His being the moon of Lycaeus, which orbits the planet of Keavir. Keavir was a giant forge world before the AdMech got to it. It was a giant manufactorum that was controlled by a rich aristocracy that sent out slaves to the moon of Lycaeus to mine it out for resources. And the slaves of this, prison planet, essentially, were people who were born there, regular criminals, or political prisoners, people who advocated for wild concepts as workers' rights, or bathroom breaks, or the such. So, Corvus crash landed, and, baby crashing into your planet, kind of a big deal, that's wild. We got ourselves a regular Superman here. But the people of Lycaeus found this kid and were like, hey, it's pretty wild. Maybe this is, our savior. This is the person who will bring us out of our slavery. This is our deliverer, which they named him that. Corvus Corax comes from that in their planet's language. For some reason, their planetary word for deliverer was what essentially is bird when translated to English. So they raised up little Corvus and trained him in all methods like warfare, leadership, just general education, where all, situation aside, how shit this was, he got a pretty good education and a pretty good family life, as Corvus is also one of the few Primarchs who had a good family relationship and parental figures, which will kind of come to haunt him in some other aspects of his life. But other than that, it kind of gave him this all-around just knowledge, and as well instilled this feeling of wanting to protect those below and making sure that there was no tyranny or slavery just around anywhere, and that was instilled into him. But eventually, as Primarchs do, he matured super fast, becoming this giant demigod of a person, where then everyone on Lycaeus was like, oh shit, yeah, the deliverer, he is here, that's him, no doubts about it anymore. To which he started planning a giant revolt of the mining colony. And the dude did it fucking masterfully. Perfect pinpoint areas to lay down weapon stockpiles that they were created or stolen. Finding and training people in secret, then promoting squad leaders and putting them in key locations. Planning protests to distract from the guards of Keavir to, distract from the general situation. And then, all at once, blowing up some tactical charges, messing with some reactors, a revolt happened, the guards not met with regular slave force, a trained battle force. They fell hard, and it wasn't, very long until they took over the moon and ready to move on to the planet. It was around this time that Big E came in, as he entered in the system and was just watching his kid go nuts. And in a weirdly supportive move, came down and said, hey, son, love what you're doing. Let's chat for a while. They talked for a good day and a half. No one knows what was said. However, Corvus swore his allegiance under a single term. Lysaeus and Kiev would be liberated by him and him alone in his work. Emperor was like, cool, man, go at it. To which Corvus did, again, very well, sowing some discord, causing revolts on the planet that allowed him to move in, strike at key targets, get it all done with. And Big E shook his hand and gave him command of the Raven Guard, which, like, I heard it was renamed. However, I kind of like to imagine that from birth he knew his son was going to be, like, bird obsessed. So he just set aside these, like, bird marines. He was like, he's going to like these. We'll just wait. And after liberating Lysaeus and Kiev, he renamed Lysaeus to, obviously, the name he would pick, Deliverance. And on it, he built his giant, beautiful, like, black ivory tower, the Raven Spire. Because, gotta have a bird named. So, Corvus fit in really well in leading his legion. Like, really well. He went and started retraining his troops to fit more of his tactics, as Corvus really liked the idea of hit-and-run guerrilla warfare, striking at key targets, and then, cutting off the enemy entirely. That was more of his speed. And when he found his Raven Guard Legion, he found them trained in some older ways of warfare he didn't really like. Kind of mirroring some people who, were kind of slavers or tyrannical in some nature, which he called out immediately. Even more, he actually noticed that a lot of his legion, especially the Terran-born ones, kind of had some bad tendencies he wasn't totally into, like kind of a Night Lord-y, which if you know anything about the Night Lords, you don't want to match their vibe for good reason, the guy with the leg skin. The Raven Guard also, their exploits aren't widely known, and they kind of have the same issue with the White Scars, where, like, you watching, how many times do you think about the White Scars or the Raven Guard, just at all? Like, not much, and it's because in lore as well, they don't really want, like, accommodations or really recognition. Their work is the recognition. They're not like Emperor's Children, where Raven Guard would actually, like, refuse medals and awards for their service. Like, no, I don't need that. And Corvus didn't really, bring that much attention to himself, the stealthy man that he is, so he kind of went unnoticed. I can also say Corvus has the, like, giant just award for being the only person who hated Horus. Like, it's just him. Because, and rightly so, Horus was kind of an ass to Corvus for no real reason. Like, there was a big battle, for the battle, like, Gate 32, it's called. Horus, with the Space Wolves and the Iron Warriors, was like, hey, Corvus, big plan. Your guys lead the frontal assault. And Corvus was like, it's not my shit, man. It's not what I do. What if I, like, strike key targets, do my guerrilla warfare thing? Perturabo then called him a pussy for not just wanting to charge in. And it got pretty heated. To where Lehman, of all fucking people, was like, hey guys, let's settle down. Let's just cool your jets. The big Viking man calmed the situation. To which Corvus kind of had to. He went along with it. However, he did make a good move. He got all the Terran soldiers to kind of lead that charge. A little shitty, not gonna lie. However, these guys were kind of like, weren't really fitting in with the new training. And as well, down the line, this suicidal mission for all the Terran-born Space Marines kind of prevented a major problem for the Horus Heresy, as the Horus Heresy was kind of started bringing in traitor cells inside of each legion through warrior lodges brought in by Horus and that slimy fuck Erebus. So, getting rid of the warrior lodges, they didn't really turn traitor. Which, speaking of the Horus Heresy, Corvus Corax and the Raven Guard were actually the ones to bring Istvan III to compliance. Yeah, Istvan III. And we know how well that went, as eventually, shit got virus bombed. That whole atrocity. And hearing that his son, full went traitor, is like, alright, get the fuck in there. He sent in Ferrus Manus, Vulcan, and Corvus Corax to Istvan V, where the drop site massacre occurred. And holy fuck, the Raven Guard got their ass fucking beat bad. Because, the drop site massacre, fun stuff. Vulcan getting nuked, like direct impact nuked. Ferrus Manus getting beheaded by Fulgrim. And then Corvus, who kind of went head to head with 3 Primarchs there. First, Lorgar, and Lorgar telling him, I found the truth. Chaos is our lord, all that good stuff. And Corvus the whole time just calling him cringe for wanting to worship chaos. Till eventually he meets Conrad Kurz, his fellow I am the Knight brother. And for the first moment, knew true fear as he saw just an absolute lunatic in Conrad's eyes. And had that moment of like, shit, if I didn't have like a mom and dad, I could have been him. And we're very similar. I could have been this fucking psycho. And then running away from that, was chased by Angron and the World Eaters for like 60 days. Not a guy you want chasing you. And they eventually retreated, got out of Istvan 5, and took the most losses of the Horus Heresy. They went from their already reduced numbers after the whole, Horus making them charge into battle thing, from 80,000 soldiers to 300. Minuscule 40k scale, as it be. And he panicked, rightly. He went right home to Terra, was like, Dad, I need a way to get more Space Marines, bad. He's like, all right, I got a Space Marine printer in the Himalayan mountains, or Himalasian as it's called in, Terran. Got to change all the names around. And gave him all the information, like psychically, here's how you make a Space Marine, here's all the stuff to do. Don't rush the project, Corvus. And he's like, okay, Dad, I'll do just that. He gets to the facility and says, I'm going to rush the project. And he does so. And as well, around the same time, the Alpha Legion, the tricky fucks that they are, get their hands in the pie. They had some infiltrators in the Raven Guard and corrupt the gene seed they're using, leading to some horrific mutations of all the results of those Space Marines, and irreparable gene seed mutations for the Raven Guard as a whole. This would be the Raptor Project. And Corvus kind of, cut his losses, like, all right, we're going to stop this. It's not working. I do have these horribly mutated, monstrosity Space Marines, though. Might as well slap them in some armor and use them as, frontal assault soldiers. It's something to do. I don't feel great about this, but, Which, that's what he did. Using what he could, the Raven Guard struck at key supply lines and, HQs for the Traitor Legions, crippling certain parts of them for the galaxy. However, he wasn't really able to help with the Siege of Terra and, any major battles as he didn't have the numbers for it. Which, then, eventually, the Horus Heresy ended. Horus died, yada, 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 all that stuff. Which, then, Corvus was met with the conundrum. What do I do about those horribly mutated raptors I have in, the dungeons of my Ravenspire? See, any other Primarch, I don't think would have had this problem. They would have went in there and been like, yeah, fuck it, just kill them all. But Corvus was cursed with this little thing called empathy, as he had good parents who taught him life had value and all that heretical stuff for the Imperium. And this decision was really hard. Corvus is a pretty nice guy, all things considered. And eventually he decided, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it myself, and put all of them out of their misery, killing them himself. Which he then held himself up in his quarters in the Ravenspire for an entire year, not leaving, in his own silent grief. Only emerging after a year, going out and leaving one final word for his legion. Nevermore. Because of course he did. And he ran off into the warp and has not been seen since. Unless you are Traitor Legions. Because in that moment, Corvus Corax swore vengeance on what he couldn't do a long ass time ago and wants to kill all of his traitor brothers. And he's on Lorgar's ass. Holy shit. Because, honestly, of the three he met, Conrad's already dead. Dude died. His whole, death is nothing compared to vindication. And Angron is barely even Angron anymore. He's just a wall of muscle. So it's really just Lorgar. And now, Corvus is a giant shadow raven monster in the warp. Not a demon, though. He's not demonic. He's just this being wreathed in shadows who can manipulate, and turn himself into a cloud of ravens that can punch through ceramide armor like it's paper. Where he is hunting Lorgar, going full fucking Doom guy in the warp. It is awesome. I hope he gets a mini, by God. And yeah, that's Corvus Corax. That's kind of his whole shtick. He's currently in the warp, fighting, being cool as fuck. And I really like this guy. I really like this Primarch. I really like the Raven Guard. This has been I always thought they were just kind of boring. like emo boys, they're great. Holy shit. And if you want to get into the Raven Guard, the best entry point I can find in a lot of the information in this video is from the book Deliverance Lost, which is, I would not recommend it. It is boring as fuck and not the best written. So do yourself a favor, read through the wiki, just read all that stuff instead. Pick some of the other books, you know, focusing more like K. Van Stryker, the current stuff. I just would not recommend Deliverance Lost, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, that's about it. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Ring the bell. See ya.